Fleet Commander Ashley White stood before the massive viewport of the UES Annihilator, watching the Zephyrian homeworld grow larger as the human fleet approached. 6 months of total war had brought them to this moment, the final confrontation, with the species that had dared to threaten Earth. The planet below was beautiful, with swirling blue oceans and green continents that had been home to Zephyrian civilization for millions of years. Emperor Vashitel's image appeared on the communication screen. The ancient alien leader looked nothing like the confident war prince who had started this conflict. His ornate robes were torn, and his silver markings had faded to dull gray. The 4 eyes that had once blazed with imperial pride now showed only desperate fear. Human Commander, I request formal parley under the ancient codes of civilized warfare. The Zephyrian Empire offers unconditional surrender and complete integration into your governmental structure. Ashley studied the alien emperor with cold interest. Your Majesty, there will be no integration. Humanity doesn't build empires. We solve problems. Then what do you want from us? Tribute, resources, territory. Name your price for ending this conflict. You're still thinking like an empire builder emperor. This isn't about what we want from you. This is about making sure you never threaten humanity again. Colonel Steve Murphy entered the command center carrying reports from the ground invasion forces that had been secretly deployed across the Zephyrian homeworld. Commander, all primary targets have been secured. Government centers, military installations, and communication hubs are under human control. Casualties, Colonel? Minimal human losses. Commander, Zephyrian resistance collapsed almost immediately when they realized we weren't following standard invasion protocols. They kept trying to arrange formal surrender ceremonies while our forces seized strategic positions. Ashley turned back to Emperor Vashitel. Your Majesty, your military has been neutralized and your government is now under human control. This conversation is a courtesy, not a negotiation. Then what happens to my people? The Zephyrian species has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. Surely we can find some accommodation that allows both our civilizations to coexist. Coexistence isn't possible, Your Majesty. Your empire threatened human survival. Species that threaten humanity don't get to continue existing as potential future threats. The Emperor's markings flickered with confusion. You speak of eliminating our entire civilization. But that would be genocide on a scale the galaxy has never seen. Even the most barbaric species in our historical records never contemplated complete species extinction. Chief Engineer Maria Santos activated her console showing the systematic shutdown of Zephyrian technology across their former empire. Commander, the communications blackout is proceeding on schedule. All interstellar communication networks in former Zephyrian space have been permanently disabled. Individual worlds can no longer contact each other. Excellent, Chief Santos. Emperor, this is what happens to species that threaten Earth. We don't conquer your territory, we eliminate your capacity to ever threaten us again. Your people will be reduced to pre-spaceflight technology and scattered across isolated worlds where they can never again build an interstellar civilization. Vashtel stared at her in horror. You're destroying thousands of years of scientific and cultural advancement. The knowledge we've accumulated, the art, the literature, the philosophical achievements of dozens of species. All potential threats to humanity. Ashley replied simply. Your empire's cultural achievements mean nothing if they can be used to build weapons against Earth. But this is monstrous. How can you justify such complete destruction of galactic civilization? Ashley activated a recording of humanity's first contact with High Commander Veltar. Your Majesty, your empire had the option of peaceful coexistence. Instead, you demanded our surrender and threatened our extinction. Everything that followed is the consequence of that decision. Dr. Carl Mitchell entered the command center carrying his analysis of the long-term implications of humanity's victory. As Earth's leading expert on galactic history, he had been tasked with documenting the complete transformation of known space. Commander, I've completed the assessment of our pacification protocols. The former Zephyrian Empire has been successfully fragmented into isolated planetary populations with no capacity for interstellar travel or communication. Population numbers, Doctor. Approximately 40 billion Zephyrians have been relocated to agricultural worlds throughout their former territory. Each world contains between 10 and 50 million individuals in sufficient population to support advanced technology, but large enough to maintain genetic diversity. Emperor Vashatel listened to this discussion with growing despair. You've destroyed our entire civilization and reduced my people to subsistence farming on scattered worlds. That's correct, Your Majesty, Ashley confirmed. The Zephyrian Empire no longer exists, and will never exist again. Your species will survive, but only as primitive farmers who pose no threat to anyone. And the other species that served our empire, similar. Treatment for those that showed any sign of resistance. Complete technological regression and population dispersal. Species that surrendered immediately were allowed to maintain slightly higher technology levels but are restricted to single-planet civilizations. Maria Santos brought up another display showing the broader transformation of the galaxy. Commander, the isolation protocols are working perfectly. Former imperial trade routes have been completely severed. Individual worlds are developing distinct cultures and losing contact with their historical connections. How long until complete cultural fragmentation, Dr. Mitchell? Conservative estimates suggest that within 200 years, most of these populations will have no memory of their former interstellar civilizations. They'll develop into isolated planetary cultures with no knowledge that space travel is even possible. Ashley nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. Emperor Vashatel, you wanted to know what happens to your people? In a few generations, they'll be peaceful farmers who think their world is the entire universe. They'll develop their own cultures and traditions with no memory of the great empire that once threatened humanity. You've committed the greatest atrocity in galactic history, the Emperor whispered. We've solved a problem, Ashley corrected. The Zephyrian Empire threatened human survival, so we eliminated it permanently. That's what humans do to existential threats. The communication ended as Emperor Vashatel was led away by human soldiers. His fate, like that of all former imperial leadership, was exile to a remote agricultural world where he would live out his remaining years as a subsistence farmer. 50 years later, Dr. Carl Mitchell published his definitive history of humanity's first interstellar war. The elderly scholar worked from his office on Luna Station overlooking the Earth, where human civilization continued to thrive and grow. His book would become required reading for all human military officers and diplomats. The Zephyrian War, as historians called it, had fundamentally changed humanity's relationship with the galaxy. News of the complete destruction of the Galactic Empire had spread to every known species. When new alien civilizations encountered human explorers, their first action was always immediate offers of friendship and cooperation. No species wanted to discover what had happened to the Zephyrians. The few surviving records of the war served as cautionary tales passed down through alien cultures. Children across the galaxy grew up hearing stories of the species that had tried to threaten humanity and had been erased from existence as a result. Admiral Jake Morrison, now elderly and retired, read Dr. Mitchell's book from his home in Colorado. The man who had made first contact with the Zephyrians smiled as he finished the final chapter. The alien empire that had demanded Earth's surrender had been reduced to scattered farmers who had forgotten that space travel was possible. His granddaughter found him reading on the porch overlooking the Rocky Mountains. "Grandpa Jake, what are you smiling about?" "Just remembering the old days, Sarah. Your grandfather helped teach the galaxy an important lesson about threatening humanity." "What lesson, Grandpa?" Jake looked up at the stars where human colonies and exploration ships continued expanding into previously unknown regions of space. Every new species they encountered had heard the stories about what happened to civilizations that threatened Earth. The lesson that humans don't fight wars, Sarah. We solve problems by making them disappear completely. The old admiral closed his book and went inside for dinner. Outside, the stars shone peacefully over an Earth that had never again been threatened by alien empire. Humanity had made sure of that. Admiral Zara Thompson watched the tactical display showing human fleet positions across former Zephyrian space. 3 months had passed since the destruction of War Prince Kethmore's armada, and the psychological impact was spreading faster than the human advance. Entire star systems were surrendering without a fight as word spread about humanity's methods of warfare. Commander Rick Hayes entered the command center, carrying reports from the latest intelligence-gathering mission. As head of human weapons development, he had been tasked with creating new tools of war specifically designed to terrify alien populations into submission. Admiral, the Psychological Warfare Division has completed analysis of alien communication intercepts. The effect of our tactics is exceeding all projections. Zara studied the data on her screen. "Show me the breakdown by species." Rick activated a holographic display showing the various alien races that had once served the Zephyrian Empire. The Altarians were the first to break. After receiving footage of what happened to Kethmore's fleet, they declared independence from the Empire and offered immediate surrender to humanity. They've agreed to relocate their entire population to reservation worlds in exchange for being allowed to survive. What about the Centauran Federation? "Complete governmental collapse," Rick reported. "Their leadership couldn't comprehend our methods, and their military refused orders to engage human forces. Civil war broke out when some factions wanted to fight, while others demanded immediate surrender. The planet is tearing itself apart without any human intervention." Zara nodded grimly. This was exactly what human strategists had predicted. The Zephyrian Empire's client species had lived for centuries under a system of honorable warfare. When faced with an enemy that fought for total annihilation rather than conquest, they couldn't adapt quickly enough to survive. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth," announced Communications Officer Patricia Wells. "President Emma Davis wants to address the fleet commanders directly." The main screen activated, showing the president in the White House Situation Room. Emma Davis looked tired but determined as she addressed the human forces scattered across the galaxy. "Commanders, you've done excellent work these past months. The Zephyrian Empire is collapsing faster than our most optimistic projections suggested. However, intelligence reports indicate that some alien species are attempting to form a new coalition against humanity." Zara leaned forward. "What kind of coalition, Madam President?" "Several species that haven't yet encountered our forces directly are trying to organize a united front. They believe that by working together they can develop countermeasures to our tactics. We cannot allow this coalition to form." Rick activated his tactical analysis. "Madam President, our latest weapons development should prevent any effective alien cooperation. We've created tools specifically designed to make alliance formation impossible," explained Commander Hayes. "We call it the Trust Killer, Madam President. It's a combination of psychological warfare and targeted biological agents. The system identifies key leadership figures in alien governments and exposes them to compounds that increase paranoia and distrust. Leaders begin suspecting their own allies of betrayal, making cooperation impossible. Emma Davis studied the report. How effective is this weapon? Field tests on the Draknari Republic showed complete governmental breakdown within 2 weeks. The ruling council began executing each other for suspected treason. By the time we arrived, the planet was in complete anarchy. And civilian casualties? Minimal direct deaths, Madam President, but the social collapse led to widespread starvation and infrastructure failure. The surviving population was relocated to agricultural worlds where they can be monitored. Zara watched the president's face carefully. Emma Davis had been a senator before the war began and had initially opposed humanity's aggressive response to the Zephyrian threat. The months of conflict had changed her perspective considerably. Commander Hayes deployed the Trust Killer against all species attempting to form anti-human coalitions. Make it clear that any cooperation against humanity will result in the complete destruction of their civilization. Yes, Madam President. After the transmission ended, Zara turned to Rick. I need you to accelerate development of the planet killer weapon. Intelligence suggests that some species are considering hiding their populations in remote systems where our conventional forces can't reach them. Rick nodded. The stellar destabilization device should be ready for testing within 6 weeks. We can use it to destroy the primary star of any system that refuses to surrender. What about the inhabited planets in those systems? Complete sterilization, Admiral. Any species that attempts to hide from humanity will find their entire solar system turned into a cloud of superheated plasma. Dr. Frank Turner entered the command center carrying his latest research on alien psychology. As humanity's leading expert on galactic species behavior, his reports had been crucial for developing effective terror tactics. Admiral, I've completed analysis of intercepted alien communications from the past month. The psychological impact of our methods is creating some unexpected results. Zara studied his data. Explain, Doctor. Several species have begun developing what can only be described as religious cults centered around humanity. They believe we're supernatural beings sent to cleanse the galaxy of unworthy civilizations. Religious cults? The vegan collective has declared humanity to be divine messengers of destruction. Their entire population is now engaged in ritual suicide because they believe dying by their own hand is preferable to facing human judgment. Rick looked disturbed. They're killing themselves. Entire worlds, Admiral. The vegan home system had 12 billion inhabitants last month. Latest intelligence suggests the population is now less than 50 million and falling rapidly. Zara considered this development. Are other species showing similar responses? The Andromedan Alliance has begun what they call purification rituals. They're systematically executing anyone in their population who shows signs of aggression or military training. They believe that if they become completely pacifist, humanity might spare them. And the results? Their military has been completely dismantled by their own people. Several worlds have devolved into complete anarchy as the population turns on anyone associated with their former government. Zara activated the fleet communication system. All commanders, this is Admiral Thompson. I'm issuing new rules of engagement based on the latest intelligence. Any alien species that attempts organized resistance is to be completely eliminated. Any species that surrenders immediately will be relocated to designated reservation areas where they can survive under human supervision. The responses came back quickly from human fleet commanders across the galaxy. Each report told the same story of alien civilizations collapsing under the psychological pressure of facing an enemy they couldn't understand. Captain Brian Walsh reported from the former Zephyrian core worlds. Admiral, entire sectors are depopulating as alien species flee deeper into unknown space. We're finding abandoned planets with functioning infrastructure but no inhabitants. Where are they going, Captain? Intelligence suggests they're attempting to reach unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. They believe that if they can get far enough away from human space, we might not follow them. Rick laughed coldly. Admiral, should we inform them that human exploration ships are already mapping those regions? No, Commander. Let them run. Fear of humanity will spread faster if they believe there's somewhere they can hide. When they eventually discover that we've already reached their hiding places, the psychological impact will be even greater. Dr. Turner activated another display showing population movements across the galaxy. Admiral, the refugee crisis is accelerating the collapse of remaining alien governments. Billions of beings are fleeing toward unexplored space, but the logistics of such massive population movements is overwhelming their transportation systems. Are we tracking these refugee fleets? Every ship, Admiral. When they reach what they think are safe systems, they'll find human monitoring stations already in place. The realization that there's nowhere in the galaxy they can hide should break the will of any remaining resistance. As reports continued flowing in from across human-controlled space, Zara realized that the war was entering its final phase. The Zephyrian Empire had been built on 3,000 years of predictable, honorable warfare. When faced with an enemy that fought for total victory rather than conquest, the entire galactic order had collapsed. Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from 47 different species today, reported Patricia Wells. Most are offering complete submission in exchange for being allowed to survive. Standard Response Communications Officer. Unconditional. Surrender and relocation to reservation worlds. Any species that attempts to negotiate terms or maintain any form of independence will be marked for elimination. Yes, Admiral. Zara looked at the tactical display showing the collapse of galactic civilization. Humanity had been threatened with extinction by an alien empire and had responded by demonstrating what extinction really meant. The galaxy was learning that when humans fought, they didn't seek victory. They eliminated problems permanently. The Age of Empires was ending and the era of human dominance had begun. Fleet Admiral Tony Ramirez stood in the command center of the UES Liberator watching enemy ships approach the Kepler 442 system. The Zephyrian Armada was impressive with over 200 vessels arranged in perfect battle formation. Their ships gleamed in the light of the system's star, while energy patterns danced along their hulls like ceremonial decorations. War Prince Kethmore commanded the alien fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed any human vessel. The Zephyrian noble had sent formal challenge documents to the human fleet, demanding honorable combat according to traditional rules. Tony had read the lengthy protocols with growing amazement. The aliens wanted to schedule their battle like a sporting event. Admiral, they're hailing us again, reported Communications Officer Janet Price. The War Prince wants to discuss the terms of engagement. Tony smiled coldly. Put him through. The alien's image appeared on the main screen. Kethmore was larger than the Zephyrians they had encountered before, with elaborate markings covering his purple skin. Golden ornaments hung from his elongated skull, and his 4 eyes glowed with confident anticipation. Human Admiral, I grow impatient waiting for your response to our challenge. The terms are generous. Single ship duels until one fleet surrenders. The defeated will be treated with honor and integrated into our glorious empire. War Prince Kethmore, Tony replied. Thank you for the offer, but humans don't fight duels. We fight wars. The alien's markings flickered with confusion. You speak. In riddles, Admiral, war is combat between fleets according to the ancient codes. There is no other form of warfare among civilized species. Then you're about to learn something new about the universe, Tony said. He cut the communication and turned to his tactical officer. Colonel Baker, begin Operation Nightmare. Captain Nicole Baker nodded from her position at the Stealth Coordination Station. Around the system, dozens of human ships decloaked from positions the Zephyrians had never detected. The enemy formation suddenly found itself surrounded by vessels that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind planets. Phase 1 initiated, Admiral, Nicole reported. Cyber Warfare Division is uploading their packages now. Across the Zephyrian fleet, computer systems began failing as human cyber attacks infiltrated their networks. The aliens had never encountered digital warfare, and their systems had no defenses against hostile code. Ship after ship went dark as their computers crashed or began following human commands instead of alien ones. Kethmore's flagship reappeared on the screen, but now the War Prince looked panicked instead of confident. What sorcery is this? Our ships are not responding to commands. It's called electronic warfare, Tony explained calmly. We're taking control of your systems remotely. Your ships now belong to us. This is impossible. This violates every code. Of honorable combat, you cannot attack without formal challenge. Tony laughed. Who said anything about honorable combat? This is War Prince. In war, you use every advantage you have. Several Zephyrian vessels suddenly turned their weapons on their own fleet as human hackers seized control of their targeting systems. The aliens watched in horror as their ships began destroying each other without any crew input. Their perfect formation collapsed into chaos as vessels tried to avoid fire from their own allies. Phase 2. Colonel Baker. Nicole activated another set of commands. From hidden positions throughout the system, small human drones began their attack runs. These weren't ships with crews. They were unmanned weapons designed for one purpose. Each drone was packed with explosives and programmed to ram Zephyrian vessels at maximum speed. The first wave of suicide drones slammed into the alien fleet before they could react. Explosions bloomed across space as drone after drone found its target. The Zephyrians tried to shoot down the incoming weapons, but there were too many and they moved too fast. This is madness, Kethmore screamed over the communication channel. You attack with unmanned vessels. Where is the honor in combat without warriors? Honor doesn't win wars, Tony replied. Results do. Sergeant Cruz begin Phase 3. Sergeant Danny Cruz commanded the human ground forces that had been secretly deployed on the system's inhabited planets. While the space battle raged above, teams of human soldiers struck at Zephyrian ground installations using tactics the aliens had never seen. Instead of formal army versus army combat, the humans used guerrilla warfare. Small teams struck supply depots and disappeared into the landscape. Booby traps destroyed vehicles and equipment when no humans were even present. Psychological warfare broadcasts filled alien communication networks with disturbing messages designed to break enemy morale. Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from Zephyrian ground forces, reported Lieutenant Morris. They say invisible enemies are attacking their bases with weapons that kill from a distance. Snipers! Tony explained to the horrified War Prince. Human soldiers who kill individual targets from positions the enemy can't detect. Very effective for eliminating enemy leadership. The space battle continued, but it was no longer a battle in any sense the Zephyrians understood. Human ships refused to engage in single combat, instead using swarm tactics where multiple vessels attacked single targets. When Zephyrian ships tried to surrender, the humans ignored their surrender signals and continued attacking until the enemy vessels were completely destroyed. "You must accept our surrender," Kethamore pleaded as his fleet dissolved around him. "The codes of war demand that you treat defeated enemies with honor." "We don't follow your codes," Tony said simply. "Human military doctrine is very different from yours. We don't take prisoners from species that threaten Earth. But this is barbaric. Civilized species do not fight this way. Then I guess we're not civilized by your standards. Colonel Baker, initiate Phase 4. The final phase of the human attack involved weapons the Zephyrians couldn't even comprehend. Biological agents specifically designed to target alien DNA began spreading through their fleet. The weapons didn't kill immediately. Instead, they caused systems failures in Zephyrian equipment that relied on biological interfaces. Nanoscale machines infiltrated alien ships and began dismantling them molecule by molecule. The microscopic robots consumed hull plating and circuitry, turning proud warships into expanding clouds of metallic dust. The Zephyrians watched their vessels literally dissolve around them while their life support systems failed. "What are these?" "Weapons," Kethamore gasped as his own ship began falling apart. "They consume our vessels like a plague." "Nanotechnology," Tony explained. "Self-replicating machines that break down enemy equipment at the atomic level. They're programmed to target Zephyrian technology specifically so they won't harm human ships." As the alien fleet died around him, Kethamore made one final attempt to understand what was happening. "Why do you fight this way? Where is the glory in victory without honor? How can you live with yourselves after such slaughter?" Tony considered the question seriously. "War, Prince, your species has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years using honorable combat. You've defeated hundreds of other species and absorbed them into your empire, but you've never fought a species that was fighting for its survival." "All species fight for survival." "No, they don't. They fight for honor or glory or conquest. Humans fight because if we lose, our entire species dies. When your survival is at stake, you don't worry about honor or rules. You use every weapon you have, and you don't stop until the threat is eliminated completely." The War Prince's ship was breaking apart around him, but he continued to stare at Tony through the screen. "You are monsters. No civilized species would conduct warfare in such a manner." "Maybe you're right," Tony admitted, "but we're monsters that protect our own. Your empire made the mistake of threatening humanity. Now you get to see what we do to existential threats." Kethamore's transmission cut out as his flagship finally succumbed to the nanomachine plague. Across the system, the last Zephyrian vessels were going dark as human weapons completed their work. In less than 6 hours, an entire alien armada had been not just defeated, but completely annihilated. "Admiral, all enemy vessels destroyed," reported Nicole Baker. "No Zephyrian survivors detected." Tony nodded grimly. "Send a message to Earth Command. Kepler 442 system is secure." The Zephyrian Empire now knows what human warfare looks like. As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, other alien species began to understand that something fundamental had changed. The humans didn't just fight wars, they eliminated enemies so completely that no trace remained. The age of honorable combat was ending, and the era of total war had begun. Commander Kyle Martinez guided the UES Vanguard through the edge of Zephyrian space 6 weeks after the Defiance had limped home with news of humanity's first alien contact. The stealth scout ship moved silently between asteroids while its sensors recorded everything about the enemy empire. Kyle had volunteered for this mission knowing he might not return, but Earth needed intelligence about their new enemies. Dr. Amy Rodriguez sat at her station analyzing the data streams flowing into their computers. As the mission's intelligence officer, she was responsible for understanding how the Zephyrian Empire operated. What she had discovered in the past month of observation disturbed and fascinated her in equal measure. "Commander, look at this," Amy said, pointing to her screen. "I've been watching their military exercises, and something is very strange about how they fight." Kyle moved over to her station. "Strange how?" "Watch this battle simulation they're running." Amy activated a recording of 2 Zephyrian fleets facing each other in what appeared to be a training exercise. "See how they line up their ships in perfect formation. Each ship type has a specific position and role. The heavy cruisers form the center line while the destroyers protect the flanks." Kyle watched as the 2 fleets exchanged fire in what looked more like a formal dance than a real battle. Ships would fire their weapons in sequence, waiting for their opponents to respond before firing again. When a ship was damaged, it would withdraw from the formation and the remaining vessels would close ranks to maintain the pattern. "It's like they're following a script," Kyle observed. "Every move is predictable." "That's exactly what it is," Amy said excitedly. "I've cross-referenced this with historical data we've intercepted from their communications. Every species they've conquered was defeated using the same tactical patterns. The Zephyrians have a military doctrine that hasn't changed in thousands of years." She brought up another file showing records of past Zephyrian conquests. "Look at how they conquered the Altarian Federation 50 years ago. First, they challenged them to formal fleet combat at a predetermined location. Both sides brought equal numbers of ships and fought according to agreed-upon rules. When the Altarians lost, they surrendered their government and were absorbed into the Empire." Kyle studied the data with growing amazement. They actually agreed to rules for the battle. Both sides knew exactly what they were getting into. "It gets better," Amy continued. "After conquest, the Zephyrians left the Altarian civilian government mostly intact. They installed imperial governors, but local leaders kept their positions as long as they swore loyalty to the Empire. The conquered species even kept their military forces, though they now serve the Empire instead of their original government. So, they don't actually destroy the species they defeat," Kyle said. "No, they integrate them. Look at the composition of Zephyrian fleets now. About 40% of their ships are crewed by conquered species who've been serving loyally for decades. It's not slavery, it's more like joining a larger family." Kyle pulled up tactical displays of current Zephyrian fleet positions. Hundreds of ships patrolled their territory in neat formations, following patrol routes that seemed to be public knowledge. Even their military bases were clearly marked and operated according to schedules that any observer could predict. "Amy, this is incredible. They're not even trying to hide their movements or capabilities. Everything they do is completely open." "That's because they've never needed to hide anything," Amy explained. "For 3,000 years, their way of warfare has been successful. They challenge other species to formal combat, defeat them in honorable battle, and then welcome the survivors into their empire. It's worked every single time." A communication alert interrupted their conversation. Kyle activated the secure channel to Earth, and General Pete Collins appeared on their screen. The grizzled old soldier looked tired but alert as he reviewed their intelligence reports. "Commander Martinez, this information is extremely valuable. We're beginning to understand what we're dealing with here. General, the Zephyrians seem to believe that warfare is some kind of art form. They have rules and codes that govern everything they do in battle. That's their weakness, Collins said grimly. Dr. Rodriguez, you mentioned they've never encountered a species that fights differently than their doctrine expects. Amy nodded. Every species they've defeated has been integrated into their empire using the same methods. Formal challenge, honorable combat, surrender, and integration. It's like they can't imagine any other way of conducting war. Collins leaned forward. What about their civilian populations? How do they treat non-combatants? That's the most interesting part, General, Amy replied. They seem to have strict rules about protecting civilian populations during warfare. I've found records of battles where Zephyrian commanders actually stopped attacks to allow enemy civilians to evacuate combat zones. They protect civilians, even when fighting their enemies, Kyle added. It's like they can't conceive of targeting non-military targets. Collins was quiet for a moment. Commander, I want you to continue observing but stay hidden. Don't engage any Zephyrian forces under any circumstances. We need more intelligence about their fleet movements and base locations. Understood, General. What's the situation back on Earth? We're preparing for war, but not the kind of war the Zephyrians expect. Dr. Rodriguez, your intelligence about their military doctrine is going to be crucial for what comes next. After ending the communication, Kyle and Amy continued their observations. They watched Zephyrian patrol fleets moving through space in perfect formation, following routes that seemed designed to be visible to anyone watching. Supply convoys traveled between systems with minimal escorts, as if the idea of attacking logistics never occurred to them. Kyle, look at this supply depot. Amy highlighted a massive space station orbiting a gas giant. It's completely undefended. They have cargo ships coming and going constantly, but no military protection at all. Why would they defend supply lines? Kyle asked. If everyone fights according to their rules, then logistics targets would be off limits. Exactly. In their experience, warfare is limited to formal fleet engagements between military forces. Attacking supply lines or civilian infrastructure would be dishonorable. They spent another week cataloging Zephyrian military installations and fleet positions. Every base was easily identifiable, and their defensive patterns were clearly visible. Communication centers broadcast on frequencies that anyone could intercept. Even their high command seemed to operate from well-known locations without any attempt at concealment. This is almost too easy, Kyle said as they prepared to return to Earth. It's like they want their enemies to know everything about them. In their culture, openness probably demonstrates strength and honor, Amy observed. Hiding your capabilities would suggest fear or weakness. As the Vanguard began its journey back to human space, Kyle thought about what they had learned. The Zephyrian Empire was vast and powerful, but they fought according to rules that made them predictable. They protected civilians and treated their enemies with honor even in defeat. Their entire military structure was built around the assumption that all species would fight the same way they did. Amy, what do you think will happen when they discover that humans don't follow their rules? The intelligence officer looked troubled. I don't think they can even imagine a species that fights differently than they do. They've been so successful for so long that they can't conceive of any other way to conduct warfare. Then they're about to get a very unpleasant surprise, Amy nodded grimly. The question is whether they'll be able to adapt when they discover that humans fight to win rather than to demonstrate honor. As Earth grew larger on their screens, Kyle knew that the intelligence they carried would change everything. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years using the same methods over and over. They were about to encounter a species that didn't care about honor or rules in battle. They were about to meet humans, and humans fought to survive. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance watching the stars shimmer through the viewport. 3 months ago, humanity had detected the first alien signals from deep space, and now they were about to make contact with beings from another world. Jake felt his heart beating faster as the massive alien ship appeared on their screens. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever built, with smooth curves and glowing blue lines running along its hull like veins of light. Captain Lisa Bennett moved beside him holding her translation device. She had spent years studying the alien signals and believed she could communicate with them. Her hands shook slightly as she activated the communication array. The screen flickered and suddenly, an alien face appeared before them. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its elongated head, and its skin was deep purple with silver markings that seemed to move on their own. "I am High Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Galactic Empire," the alien spoke, through their translation system. "You are the species called humans from the 3rd planet of this system." Lisa stepped forward and smiled. "Yes, we are humans from Earth. I am Captain Lisa Bennett, and this is Admiral Jake Morrison. We come in peace and friendship. We hope to learn from each other and share knowledge between our peoples." The alien's 4 eyes focused on her, and something that might have been amusement crossed its features. "Peace and friendship," Veltar repeated. "These are words spoken by the weak before they submit to the strong. Your species is unknown to our empire, but that will change today." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not going the way they had hoped. "Commander Veltar, we seek only peaceful relations. We have no desire for conflict with your empire." "You misunderstand the nature of the universe, small human," Veltar said. "There are only 2 types of species in this galaxy, those who rule and those who serve. Your kind will learn this truth as all others have before you." The alien gestured, and more ships appeared around the Defiance. Dozens of Zephyrian vessels surrounded the human ship like wolves circling prey. Each ship was larger than the Defiance, and their weapons were already charging with deadly energy. "Your empire has grown strong by conquering other worlds," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But surely there is room in the galaxy for different ways of living. We could be allies instead of enemies." Veltar made a sound that their translator interpreted as laughter. "Allies are made between equals, little human. You have 1 ship and we have 1,000. You have 1 world, and we have ruled 100 systems for 3,000 years. There is no equality here." Jake activated his ship's defense systems and sent an emergency message to Earth. "Commander, we will not submit to your empire. Humanity values freedom above all else. If you want our world, you will have to take it by force." "Force," Veltar said, and his silver markings pulsed brighter. "You speak of force as if you understand what it means. Your species has lived alone on 1 world, fighting only each other with primitive weapons. You know nothing of true warfare." The alien touched something on his control panel, and images appeared on the screen showing massive space battles. Zephyrian fleets fought against other alien species in what looked like carefully choreographed dances of destruction. Ships faced each other in formal lines, exchanging fire according to what seemed like rules of engagement. When one side was clearly beaten, they would surrender and be absorbed into the empire. "This is how civilized species conduct war," Veltar explained. "With honor and according to the ancient codes. The strongest fleet wins, and the defeated join the victor. This is how we have built our great empire across the stars. Lisa watched the battle footage with growing understanding. Your wars follow rules. You fight like it's a game with winners and losers, but both sides survive. Of course, Veltar said. What would be the purpose of destroying those who could serve the Empire? We are not barbarians. We conquer to bring order and civilization to the galaxy. Jake felt something cold settling in his chest. These aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. Humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of total war. When humans fought, they didn't play games or follow rules. They fought to survive, and survival meant the complete destruction of any threat. Commander Veltar, Jake said, carefully. I need you to understand something about humans. We don't fight for honor or glory. We don't follow rules in battle. When we fight to win completely or die trying. The aliens' markings shifted to what seemed like confusion. All species say such things before they learn the reality of their situation. You will come to understand that resistance is pointless. Your world will become part of our empire, and your people will serve us as millions of others do. And if we refuse, Lisa asked, then we will take your world by force, and your species will learn the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire. But do not worry. We are not cruel masters. Those who accept their place in the Empire live good lives under our protection. Jake looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. These people had volunteered to make first contact with an alien species. Instead, they had found an empire that demanded humanity's surrender. He thought about Earth with its billions of people who had never seen an alien ship. They were depending on him to protect them. Commander Veltar, Jake said, I'm going to give you one chance to leave this system peacefully. Take your ships and go back to your empire. Never return to human space. The alien's 4 eyes widened in what was clearly shock. You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire with one small ship. Your arrogance will be remembered when your world burns. Our arrogance, Jake repeated. Commander, you're about to discover that humans don't make threats. We make promises. I promise you that if your empire attacks Earth, you will regret it for however long your species survives. Veltar's markings turned bright red. Enough of this foolishness. You will surrender your ship immediately or face destruction. This is your final warning. Jake turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Chen, prepare all weapons for combat. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them the Zephyrian Empire has declared war on humanity. The young officer's hands moved quickly over her controls. Weapons ready, sir. Message sent. Veltar stared at them through the screen. You choose destruction over submission. So be it. All ships prepare for battle. Show these humans what happens to those who defy our empire. The alien ships began moving into attack formation. Their weapons charged and targeting systems locked onto the Defiance. Jake knew his ship was outnumbered 50-1, but he wasn't worried about winning this battle. He was worried about what would happen when the Zephyrian Empire reached Earth and discovered what humanity was really capable of when threatened with extinction. All hands prepare for combat, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. Today we show these aliens that humans don't surrender. We fight. The first exchange of fire lit up space around them as humanity's first interstellar war began.